Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a beautiful morning in Toronto. It's nice, it's sunny, and I'm very, very happy to see all of you here, choosing to be in this beautiful, sunny, and divine house also. Good morning to our viewers from the web. And so today we are going to have a lecture on practicing the mediumship. But we're going to start with a reading from the book Happy Life by Divaldo Pereira Franco and Psychographic by Divaldo by Joana de Angelis. Always try to make the decision that hurt you and your neighbor the least. Before you make commitments, think about the possible results, and you will be more easily able to choose those that will provide you with the best fruits in the future. Whatever advantages for you mean problems for someone else, refuse them. No one can be happy building his happiness on the misfortune of his neighbor. To put it another way, do not do unto others what you would not have done unto you. What you lose today to avoid harming another, we will receive tomorrow without hurting anybody. So let's close our eyes, elevate our thoughts to God, our Creator, to Jesus, our Master of Love, our guiding light, to all the spirits present here today, the incarnate and discarnate ones, that we ask them to guide us, to brighten up our minds and our hearts for the teachings of today, to give us everything that we need to fulfill our mission in this life. And with our hearts filled with happiness and gratitude, we say thank you, and so be it. Okay? So,
I'll start. Let me
yeah,
explain what's
so
happening. Our lecturer can't make it today.
sure, you have to come here.
Talk to me, okay, on the web. Our lecturer can't make it today. Unfortunately, he was coming, but he's not feeling well, so he had to return home. So we're going to fill in, and we're going to improvise a bit, but that's okay. That's okay. So let me get started, and then
I'll be here with Joe, and we'll be trying to do our best
let's see
together.
for now, and then I'll call you up when it's time already.
Okay.
So, this month is around mediumship. Last week we had our first lecture of this series where I introduced the basic notions of what a medium is or what mediumship is. So let's kind of start by recapping some of those things because it's interesting. Spiritism is much more than mediumship. And we learned last week that mediumship is the ability that we have, some people more strongly than others, to communicate and be a bridge between spirits that are alive, which are us, and those that are discarnated. Something that always intrigued humankind is the mystery of the afterlife. And mediums became a bridge, a door, that allow us to kind of a peek, understand, look, and talk to those who have left the incarnated life, and we'll see for specific reasons they may be allowed to communicate back with us. And I say it's interesting because you don't have to be spiritist to be a medium. It's a natural characteristic of the human being. After all, we are spirits. The fact that we're incarnated creates certain restrictions. Our body, as described by many of the spirits, is a bit of a little prison that we have because it contains the spirit into a physical limitation. And because of divine mercy, we are also limited in terms of our memory and our understanding of what we were before we incarnated. When we talk about reincarnation, we know that if we were to be born again every time with the memory of all of the things that happened to us or what we did before. We simply could not live a normal life. We are evolving spirits, which means that today, who we are is as good as we have ever been. Going backwards, we could not have been worse than what we are today. So God protects us by making us kind of forget that and move on with our evolution. And part of that evolution is the evolution of the mediumship capabilities that we have. The more evolved we become, the more connected we are with all kinds of spirits, even if they are discarnated. Now, the whole idea of mediumship has always existed in humankind. But before Spiritism, it was surrounded very much around mysticism. Those who were capable of spontaneously receiving these communications, and whether they heard voices, they saw images, they had insights into the future, all of these people, in very many cases, were considered to be mystics, God's gift, but more often than not, they were considered to be crazy people. Because we don't understand, as a general rule in terms of society, or we don't want to believe, or society doesn't want to believe, in the capabilities of mediumship. Which is interesting. Every major religion, every major spiritual thought believes in the afterlife. That's part of one of the key starting points of having a spiritual theory or a spiritual doctrine, is that we are survived after our death. Now, every religion differs of what happens when you die, and very few actually believe that we reincarnate. But nevertheless, if we're still the same spirit, why would it be so unreasonable to expect that we can still communicate with each other? Why does it have to be, it's here now, it's there later, and the two shall never meet? Every religion, every major religion also has the concept of prophets who could speak to God. So why would some people would be so capable, and why would we think that other people doing this was something bad, something evil? So through the generations, through this, a civilization evolved, we saw many different types of experiences, mostly spontaneous, uncontrolled, of people who have the capability but have no clue what it means. And when they try to find help, when they do try to find help, because for these people, often they are ashamed. They think they are crazy. They think they are broken in some ways. So they don't ask for help. And when it becomes so uncontrollable and they ask for help, often they don't get it. So practicing mediumship is not an easy thing. It's actually very difficult. Because most mediums have very little support to be a medium. We met a doctor in the U.S. What's his name? The guy from Dr. Schwartz? Yeah. Dr. Schwartz, who studies mediumship, and his wife is a medium. They're not Spiritists. But he believes in tries to prove that these communications are actually happening. And Sandra and I met him in one of the Spiritist conference, and we were asking him, okay, your wife is a medium, and she knows other mediums. He says, yeah, she knows a few. And how do they support each other? How do they exchange ideas? How do they document what they do? And he says they don't. Very solitary. What Spiritism brought that was completely different was an understanding that mediumship is a natural capability of the human being, of the living spirit, and that we can actually establish some rules, establish some characteristics, we can document, we can actually train ourselves to be more capable in the mediumship areas. Like any of our human capabilities, some of us are born with a lot kind of natural gifts around it. So we know that some people are naturally gifted for music, for sports, for intelligence. Some are naturally gifted for mediumship. So when we are practicing Spiritism first, what we try to do is demystify the practice of mediumship. It's not magic. It's not a special gift. It's none of that. It's something that over the next generations we expect more and more people to do. And Kardec realized that. And in the time that he was codifying Spiritism, he took special attention to the mediums. And interesting enough, not many people think about this, but Kardec himself was not a medium in that way. He could not communicate with spirits. He relied on other mediums. And his first job was to separate the true mediums from the charlatans. Because like anything that we do as humans, there are the true capable people, and then there are the ones who want to take advantage of that, and they fake it. And mediums, these charlatans were especially evil because they take advantage of other people who are the most vulnerable in their lives. Either because they lost someone in their lives to death, or they're just having a really hard time moving ahead with their lives. So now they look towards the afterlife for explanations, for reasons, for direction. So that's the first thing that Kardec did. He created a network of trusted mediums that he could communicate, he could ask questions, and they could share with him his experience. And out of this came a very important book called the Medium's Book. It's the only book really that we know that is exclusively written for and dedicated to the practice of mediumship. And interesting enough, this was the second book out of the 5 that Kardec wrote. It was that important. Why was it that important? Because Kardec would write all of his series, starting with the Spirit's Book, based on the information that these mediums were giving him. So how could he establish credibility of his work if he could not show that he took this very seriously? That he documented that as a scientist, the different characteristics, the different types of mediumship capabilities, whether it's ability to hear and communicate orally or through psychography, which is the writing. There are many different ways. And at the time, the physical phenomena were very predominant. Now, we don't know why during different phases of history, certain types of phenomena are more common than others. But at that time, the physical was very predominant. And we can imagine that the reason for that is that the spirits needed to kind of give a wake-up call to realize what was happening was very unusual and that somebody needed to study. And that somebody ended up being Kardec and many of those who followed him. So now we have something to read, to learn. And it's amazing that we're a very small group here in Toronto. Spiritism is obviously not familiar across the Canadian society. But we do have people who walk in here from all types of different religions. We've had Muslims, non-believers, Catholics, other types of Christians. And they come here because they are experiencing things that they cannot explain. And it's impacting their lives, and it's scaring them. There are different ways that once we have that capability, that what we can do. We can try to shut it off, and there are ways to shut it off. If you do not want to continue to be a medium, there are ways and techniques that you can ask that the spirits no longer try to communicate with you. There are those who, like the mediums of this house, who work weekly in terms of our session, helping us communicate with spirits that have died, that discarnated, and they're confused. They need direction. And I'll explain a little bit why do we need those mediums in the first place. So they are kind of the spiritual counselors to the discarnated spirits. And then there are the mediums who have this as a lifelong vocation, as a mission in their lives. And many of the lectures that we do here talk about work that was developed by these mediums, whether it's Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco, who else we can? Raul Teixeira. So there are less than maybe 100, but there is a number of these mediums who essentially came to this life, to this incarnation of theirs, as a mission of a medium. And it's a very sacrificed life. Nothing like we see the mediums on TV that seems to be very glorious and special. These people tend to live very humble lives, fully dedicated to the work, to spreading the message, and spreading the key concepts that the spirits want us to learn. Because spirits are not what they are to talk to us or to tell us what to do. Sorry about that. We are not to be dependent on others, living or not, to decide what to do in our lives. How often do we talk about the individual responsibility that we have for our own decisions as the way that we will be judged, and we will judge ourselves in terms of our evolution. So it seems like kind of trying to cheat. If I'm asking for a medium, talk to the spirits and let them tell me whether I should get a new job or not. Tell me what's going to happen. Am I going to get married to a nice person or not? Should I move back to Brazil or not? Even if the spirits were able to give that advice, and if they are, they must be more involved than us. And because they're more involved than us, they know better. They know that it's not their role to make the decisions for us. We must have our decisions. So why does God allow mediumship to occur? Well, it's probably a better question. It says, why does it not occur more often? As I said, it's the same spirit that lives in each one of us now, that after we die, we discarnate this body, is the same spirit that moves on with the same needs, the same thoughts, the same attachments that we have to loved ones. So why is it unreasonable that a spirit would like to come back and continue following his or her family? But the spirit also has its own destiny that needs to follow. So it's walking that fine line between, sometimes it is important to communicate, other times it is best that we continue our paths. We will meet again. Kardec was creating the Spirit's book. he sent a number of questions. The book is organized as question and answers. And he would give it to the mediums. And he would ask these mediums from different places who don't talk to each other. I mean, there was no internet back in 1860s. And he was initially surprised, and then later not, that he would get almost identical answers back from these mediums. For the same questions, the answers would be incredibly similar, if not identical, coming from people around the world. What he realized now is that there are a set of serious spirits that have been tasked with giving us more information. We also often call it the third revelation, about this relationship, this organization between the physical and the spiritual world. And that's only possible through the actions of the mediums. Without the mediums, we wouldn't be able to do this. Without serious mediums, we would not believe it. So today, there are thousands of people in Brazil and other countries that dedicate themselves, partially or entirely, to the job of being that intermediate. The ones that are serious are humble about it. It's not a privilege to be a medium. And in fact, we've seen some spirits tell us that it's not a reward. It's something that you have to do to atone from previous lives to be a medium. Because there are sacrifices. Sacrifices in your personal life, sacrifice in possibly your ambitions around profession. There's only 24 hours a day. So as we slice it up in all the activities we do, we have to make choices. Practicing mediumship is a gift not to the medium, but to those who the medium help. Sometimes they are discarnated spirit, like we have this on a Tuesday night and Friday night sessions here. Sometimes is for the incarnated, through the encouragement messages that mediums like Givaldo brings us on a constant basis. Giving us hope, giving us inspiration, motivation, and trying to keep us focused on what is important versus what we feel is more rewarding. It's the balance between material and spiritual. And the medium also stands in between those two. Mediums that have, or individuals that have, strong mediumship capabilities, for that reason, need to practice. Before practicing mediumship, you have to practice good moral behavior. Why is that? Why is it so important for mediums to be morally correct? Remember that in other lectures we also talk about the energy that we vibrate with our thoughts. So if we are a person who vibrate good ideas, healthy thoughts, we will attract similar spirits to us, both incarnated and discarnated. So if I'm a medium, I want to have serious spirits attracted to me. So I must have my own self in balance, behaving correctly, not doing things wrongly all the time. Now, we're not perfect. No medium is perfect either, so they will always have their own faults. But more often than not, mediums have that responsibility, because if they start going down a more negative path with maybe some substance abuse or violence, it doesn't matter that they come to the spirit center and they have this appearance of someone who is kind of prepared. He or she will attract the wrong types of spirits. And those spirits will do harm first to the medium. It will bring wrong ideas. It will play with their ego, their vanity. They will start to think that they are the next great prophet in the world. All of this will only detract that person for the mission that they have chosen for this life. And we actually even have a term for that. It happens so often that there is a term that describes the mediums who have been subject to that kind of moving out of the way, the right way. It's called fascination. So mediums who become fascinated are those who were influenced negatively by spirits, the bad spirits who came. So is it possible that a medium who was always good morally still be affected by fascination? Yes, there is. Right? The better you are as a medium, the more kind of attention the lower spirits will have on you. Because they see you as a threat to their desire to bring everybody down, when our true purpose is to bring everybody up. But if the medium holds to his or her moral standing, they will be stronger to fight those spirits, and more importantly, they will surround themselves by other incarnated individuals who will alert and ensure that they do not stray. If, on the other hand, these mediums are surrounded by other individuals who are there to pump up their ego, he's getting it from both sides. He's getting it from the incarnated, the disincarnated, and suddenly we have lost a great medium, lost to this fascination. And there are a number of documented cases where this has happened. So I think I'm rumbling a bit because I'm just trying to put all of these thoughts together. But key points here. Mediumship is not a special gift. It's a natural characteristic of the human being that we're still evolving. For that reason, some individuals are more apt for it than others. But we'll all get there. A person that has mediumship, natural mediumship capabilities does not mean that they're necessarily more evolved or better than individuals who don't. There are cases that people who are, for all purposes, if we look at them, think this is the wrong person to be a medium. Maybe they were thieves, maybe they were crooks, maybe they were not morally correct, and still they come with that capability. So the two things, our evolution and our ability to have mediumship capabilities in this life, are not necessarily attached. But those who are lucky enough to have the right guidance, to study it first, and to understand the do's and don'ts, like everything else we have in our lives, there are do's and don'ts that guide us. If they're fortunate enough to get this education, they can make a choice of what kind of medium they want to be in their life. If all they want, like I said, is to shut down, they are simply being bothered by spirits, there are techniques, praying, there are thoughts, there are many different things that can be done to push them away. If you become more conscious of what is mediumship, and something in you lights up, because internally, deep down, your spirit will know that this is something that you had decided to do in this life, then yes, with the education, with the support, with the protection of a Spiritist house, you can really then safely and productively practice that skill. But always be on the alert. Because at any moment, you may slip. That's why I was asking Dr. Schwartz about these mediums, many of them Americans, that practice in isolation. They are probably at the greatest risk of fascination. So often we see people who recognize that they have this capability and then try to make a lot of money out of it. And as we said, we can't combine the two things. I think we actually haven't said that, but one of the things that Kardec clearly identified early on in his work is that material purposes do not work with mediumship practice. So one might say, listen, but if I'm going to dedicate my life to mediumship, why can't I make money out of it? What's wrong with making money of an honest life? And that's what a lot of mediums, especially in the US, think. There is a town here close by in New York State called Lilydale that probably over 200 mediums live there. And you go around the little houses, cottages, and there's a price, $15 for this, $20 for this. Some are specialized in marital, others specialized in love life and whatever. Are we saying that they're all fakes? That they all are just pretenders? No. Very likely many of them had the natural gift. But the thing is, put yourself in a position. I'm a medium, and mediums do not control the spirits that communicate with them. Not to the point that says, listen, I want to call you, please call me back. It doesn't work that way. The practice happens when spirits, discarnated spirits, are in some ways allowed to talk to you because there's a real purpose for it. A serious purpose. If I was receiving the spirit spontaneously, there was a purpose for it. And maybe I made people happy, maybe I resolved problems, maybe I was really important in my community. Then I say, okay, I'm going to start making money out of this. I'm going to charge $20 for every reading I do. Well, I have Mas who comes to me and says, Joe, I have a problem. Can you contact the spirit and find out for me how to solve the problem? Well, I might actually even believe that that's what I'm doing. But the reality is that there's no spirit necessarily wanting to talk to Marcia. So if I start to concentrate as a medium, if I have that capability, who do you think it's going to come? Is it a good spirit that wants Marcia to be a happy person? Two things could happen. Either a kind of a playful, kind of evil spirit will come and give me some rotten ideas that I will pass to Marcia. Or I want to help Marcia so much that I will actually imagine that spirits are talking to me. And I will give the response that Joe, spirit, is thinking, not any other spirits. I am truly believing. So there's a transition, right? So there's a transition from the natural capability to the continue the capability with the wrong spirits to the point where I'm taking more of my own spirit's thoughts, and then to the point that I realize I no longer have the gift, but I can't tell anybody that. But I've done it for long enough that I've learned how to fake it. So now I'm intentionally, I'm consciously a fake. Now imagine the spirit dying, going back to the spiritual world, and looking at his original plan for his life and what happened to it. A lot of disappointments. Right? Because it wasn't the purpose of his life to be a charlatan. I'm sure of that. So that's why in Spiritism we believe that it is so important that we balance our activities, but that we have a specific attention to a couple of things. Obviously, to the charity we do, to the education around Spiritism and the spiritual world, but also to the practice of mediumship, which means the weekly sessions that we have, but more importantly, helping those who come to us who don't understand. They do have this natural gift, ability to talk to spirits. Spirits recognize this, comes to them, and we help them, provide some comfort, provide some direction. And then, we have on a regular basis here studies of the Medium's book, especially for those who either want to be more informed about mediumship, but also those who believe they have that capability in them to understand what it means, why is it happening. So, if we all have mediumship capabilities, why are we not all practicing mediumship? I've talked about the missionary mediums who come and dedicate their whole lives to it. We talk about the spontaneous mediums. We talked about the communications that happen with the natural mediums. But the reality is, if you take the definition of what a medium is, which is an incarnated spirit that can receive influence or communications from the spiritual world. We know that every one of us, it is influenced by the spiritual world. It could be by our guiding spirit. Could be by other good spirits that surround us and want us to encourage us, influence us positively. But it could be also those joking spirits that come around that want to tease us, want to push us towards some of the vices that they have, so they would have nothing better than see other incarnated spirits doing the bad work for them. So in that sense, we're all influenced, sometimes very slightly, sometimes very deeply. We just don't know it. We just don't realize it. Interesting is the more you study about mediumship, the more you start to recognize these things in you. Thoughts that you have that came out of the blue. So how's that possible? Where is that blue? Right? Thoughts that you don't want to have, and it keeps coming back to you. Or simply some great ideas that encourage you to do good things. These are all positive influences that we have. And the same rule that I talked about for the mediums in terms of being in good moral standing, having a morally correct life, also applies to us. Why? Because it's some kind of a religious morality that's going to be necessary, that we have to do this. No, the reality is that in Spiritism, being morally correct is a way to surround yourself with good spirits. And the more good spirits that surround you, the more quickly you evolve, the better you will feel, and the more correct things you will be doing with your life, which will make you happy. Much more than some of the other activities that not so good spirits could induce you to do. So, I'm going to stop now and then open up for questions. I am a medium. No, I just have to look at you. I don't have to read you. Just again, we will continue the topic of mediumship in the other lectures this month. But in terms of practicing, understand and walk away from here knowing that we all have, to some degree, that capability. And that's a good thing. And that we need to respect and support those who take on greater medium roles, because life for them is not easy. And as a TSS, as a Spiritist group, we need to embrace and comfort those who are not spirits and who do not understand what is happening to them, and try to explain and identify cases where it could be a spiritual influence taking place, versus other cases that could be biological in nature. It could be a stressful situation. It could be something mental that's taking place with them. But we are probably in the best position. We're not perfect. We don't know everything. But we are prepared to help, at least to try to listen and understand what is happening with them. So, questions?
Joe.
Yes.
I wish you could tell us more about a mediunic session. Things that go on a mediunic session.
There are many different types of mediunic sessions. I will explain the ones that we have here on a weekly basis, which is the most typical that Spiritist centers around the world do. There are, obviously, probably read about Spiritist, mediumship sessions where there's huge communications, people writing books. But the reality is that the mundane, the 80 or 90% of the work, it's very simple. So we organize ourselves on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, and we sit at that table, and we have typically 3 communicating mediums, 2 or 3, and their role is fairly straightforward, not simple, but straightforward, is to open their capabilities to spirits who are confused, who are lost, and need some assistance. So, once somebody discarnates, especially if they have a strong belief around the afterlife, which is not true, they had the wrong belief around the afterlife. Either they believed that there was no afterlife, that they were supposed to be dead, and then suddenly they are experiencing that their life continues, but everything around them is both familiar and strange at the same time. They are very confused and scared. They are suffering from the consequences of all of their bad acts that they did in their lives, and they don't know why. They have no clue. There are kind of communities of higher spirits. They're prepared to help them. But because these recently discarnated spirits in that situation are vibrating still very close to the same way that they were when incarnated, they can't see those higher spirits. Just like we, in most cases, can't see the higher spirits, after they discarnate, they still can't see them. So if they can't see them, can't hear them, the type of help that the higher spirits can do is very limited. It's the same type of influencing that they have when we're incarnated. So the role of the medium is to calm down, to reach out to these spirits that are brought here for us to talk to them. And we get all kinds of situations. We get spirits who are still in terrible pain because they had a tragic death. And while they're experiencing that pain over and over and over again, they will continue to vibrate at a very low level. So our role is to kind of touch them, talk to them, and kind of try to explain. We can't get them to understand, but at least to calm them down so they can start to vibrate. They can start to relax and be in a state that's more appropriate for the higher spirits to take care of them. So we're like a bit of an injection, kind of a reality check injection that we do in these spirits It's a shock to them. And then once they recovered from that, now they're in a better place to be attended to. And we have a spiritual team that works with us. They're just there. They kind of influence these spirits to come here. And it's very interesting because we asked them, how did you get here? And he says, I don't have a clue. I was in one place, in a very dark place, and suddenly I'm in your room here now. Right? And we know that they were influenced by the higher spirits can still do that. They can still influence them enough to bring them to our house here and connect them with one of the mediums that we have.
Can I say something? Sometimes it's not even the high spirits, but it's a spirit they were very much attached to somehow, in their last incarnation or maybe in different incarnations. But they not only respect those spirits, but they have some kind of affection towards that spirit, meaning they vibrate, when the spirit is close to them, they vibrate on the same level, and then that spirit can bring them here. So sometimes they say, oh, I don't know that person brought me here. Oh, it's my brother who brought me here. Oh, it's a friend who brought me here. So it's someone that they have some kind of affection towards. Sometimes they recognize because maybe it was on the same reincarnation that they had lost. So it's a mother, or it's someone that they knew, or it's somebody that they don't even know, but maybe it was from the previous incarnation that they don't know. So it's somebody that they have respect and has authority over too.
One thing that we have to always remember is that sometimes when we say our spiritual team, higher spirits, we have this natural kind of tendency to equate them to angels. Right? So they're these fantastic beings that are so perfect. They're not. They're spirits a little bit maybe better than us, sometimes exactly like us, that have discarnated and are working on the other side. So they are not anywhere that close to the perfection of the high spirits. They're just higher than us because they have longer lives and have gone through multiple more lives.
Yeah. And I just want to say something too, Sam, to you and to everybody who is listening to us today. There is one key word that we can say that is going to help that spirit. Either the incarnate ones who comes here for help, or the discarnate one who are lost. And the word is, does anybody know? Love. This is the word. Because once they are accepted and they feel love, because they can feel our love. Maybe they don't know us, but they do feel that we love them. Sometimes we say to the spirit that comes here, we love you. What, you don't even know me. But that's their first rebuke, how can you love me? Because my brother, your sister. And you can, if you don't believe in my words, you can feel my love. And they do feel it. So that's why the importance of studying and becoming morally in a moral state of becoming a better person each and every day and really walking the path of goodness. It's so important for those who wants to practice mediumship. You have a question?
Ellie from internet is asking, are the mediumship meetings open to visitors?
No.
Question, please.
The question is, are these mediumship sessions that we have here open to visitors or guests? No, it's a very serious, it requires a lot of study to be in a position. That's why we call these the closed groups. And our intention now is to start creating a new closed group that's for the first time here at the TSS from the very beginning. will be exclusively in English. We have the groups that come on Friday that are mostly in English or almost exclusively in English. But we'll be doing a whole education from the beginning in English. So that's probably coming now in the second semester this year.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that just because you join this kind of education that you will continue afterwards as a mediumship worker. It is a commitment, it is an obligation that we put upon ourselves, so we don't expect everybody to be ready for that. But those who think they are ready, this is the path to get them started and then trained and prepared to run these meetings.
Yes.
So, everyone that participates in a meeting need to be a medium.
To the point that we're all mediums,
Right.
Everyone who participates in the meeting needs to be well studied on mediumship. Right? Because we have about 4 different key roles that we play. We have one person who must oversee the meeting, the coordinator or the facilitator, or the coordinator. We have the mediums that receive the communications, and sometimes they are written, sometimes they're oral. We have other mediums that work with these receivers, and they actually are the ones who talk, the explainers, who try to engage a conversation with the spirit. And we have the other mediums who are providing their thoughts, their love, and their energy, providing their support to the whole thing to happen, to maintain balance, maintain protection, and maintain high levels of energy, because this is very draining on the mediums. Yes, Otto?
Are there risks in participating or studying the mediumship?
Are there risks in participating and studying mediumship? Well, there's no risk whatsoever in studying mediumship.
Not even participating.
The participation, the risk is the one of fascination.
Yes.
That is the greatest risk that we have, is that those who are not fully prepared to take on the full set of responsibilities that they have, they could fall into the trap of fascination.
And it's so easy to fall. I remember that when I first started becoming, as a medium, I have a very hard time writing. Like I write one, especially in Portuguese. So I write something, and in English is even worse. I write something and I come to Joe and do you think this is right? Like I'm so insecure about my writing. So here I am in a mediumship session, writing without thinking, super fast. And then I read this, at the end of the session, everybody who psychographed something has to read. And I read this beautiful poem in English. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then I realized that I said, oh my God, I can't believe, because I think it's me, and that's such a simple thing. But if you truly believe that you had anything to do, you are on a path of fascination. So right away I correct myself, I said, oh no, this is it's a really nice spirit who came and brought this beautiful message. It was just an endearing message to all of us, but in a form of a poem. So it's you have nothing to do, you just medium. You were just a medium. So
another example is that we know of groups where especially the leaders of that meeting, we ask them, do you receive your mediums, right? So do you receive all of these types of spirits, the low spirits, the needy, the confused? And they say, no, those are the regular mediums do this. I only receive higher spirits.
Yeah.
Right? So they truly believe that. They truly believe that their role is only to receive higher spirits. And once you get into that mindset, we know that that's not a good place to be. Right? Because then, first of all, you start to believe that every communication you're receiving is from a higher spirit, when chances are they're not. So you're giving that message the credibility that it does not merit. Because that's the other thing. I mean, take the internet, chat. and you go to a chat room, and you start talking with a person, and they start describing themselves. How do you know what they're saying is true? Because you're not seeing them. You don't know them.
Exactly.
So I say, I am a 12-year-old girl, right? When in fact could be a 40-year-old man sitting behind the keyboard. How do you know? How do you trust? Same thing with the spirit. You're hearing a voice, you're hearing a message. How do you know that that message is trustworthy and that spirit is trustworthy? Kardec spent good part of his early years answering that question, trying to figure out how can we separate. And there's whole chapters in the book that talk about that. And the bottom line is that you have to be trained to pick up the things that would give away that there's a fake behind. So just like a police develop techniques to pick up who is not talking like a 12-year-old girl, not writing like a 12-year-old girl, to start to identify this is a high-risk person. They may not be who they say they are.
But if you don't, if the, how do you call it, the explainer?
Yeah.
The person who talks to the spirit, if he's not sure about if that's a spirit saying that she is, who is claiming that she's someone who doesn't, it doesn't matter. Just give to her whatever she needs and send her away with love. That's always. Because, you know, if you start doubting the spirit, and if you're not sure, the spirit's going to pick up that from you. As soon as he picks up that from you, you doubt. He's going to go through, other things in you. And then he can just manipulate you the way they want. So if you're not sure, just give them love and send them away with love and say, you can come here back next week and everything. Danielle.
Yes, I have just one thing to add. I think it's nothing new, it's adding a point. But just thought that I have. Because yesterday I was watching on YouTube little talk with Haroldo Dias, and he was talking about a whole lot of things such as all the activities that I have in the Spirit Center, such as lectures, mediumistic meetings. And one thing that he mentioned that it makes really sense is that all these things, they are means, in short point, right? It's means to help each other. So, as you said, and how do you help each other, right? It's the basis is all written in the teachings that we have by Christ, the teachings that we have in the Spiritist books. And just like the lecture, it's that we are being informed about a lot of things that hopefully when you are sitting in this group, we walk away with something that can actually help us to have a better understanding of the struggles that we have in our life, the challenges that we have, the emotions that we have. And I personally see in a similar way the role of the mediumistic meeting, right? It's a meeting to give the support, as you two pointed out, to those spirits that are there. Some other times might be as well to the medium itself, because by studying, by learning, you also gain some strength that are going to help. And there was a very interesting case where he mentioned there was a guy who passed away, very, let's say, evolved but incarnated spirit, who had a spirit center in Uberaba, in Minas, right? And he was doing some charity work. He was knocking on doors to grab food to give to the poor. And he knocked in the door of the house of a Catholic woman against Spiritism. And when she opened the door, because she knew him, she spit in his face. And then he said, okay, now that you spit in my face, do you have anything for the poor? What he meant by that, he was not doing that for himself, right?
Exactly.
He was doing that for others.
Exactly.
And I think this is a very, very good point to the fascination thing that medium people who work in these meetings or in any kind of work in the Spirit Center, it's not about yourself. It's about living the doctrine and all the basis which can be summarized in do unto others what you'd like to do to yourself.
Absolutely.
Love God your Father and love others, and all the rest it's means for us to be able to replicate.
Absolutely. So this is one very good point of how do you why do you have to leave those who choose to become mediums? Why do you have to live your lives according to the Spirit's morals? Because if you're not, you're just gonna be a how do you say, a puppet in the hands of the spirits. Okay, so one thing that is very, very important before we go today is practicing mediumship. Before even start, you have to know what mediumship is all about, because if you're not, you don't study, if you don't know, you're going to believe in everything that you hear or you see. So studying mediumship is very, very important, so you know how to control everything in your life. Okay, so welcome Carla to Canada. She is a very good friend of ours. She came from Brasília, and she's also a spiritist. She was at FEB, Federação Espírita Brasileira, and we are very happy that you were here joining us. So now we are going to be calling for the kids, and the kids at the front. No? Okay. Thank you so much for those that are watching us on the internet. Now we're gonna be having our classes, okay? And I hope to see you all either next Wednesday or next Thursday during our classes on Kardec books that we start at 7 until 8:30, or next Sunday during our public lectures, okay? Thank you so much and have a good